I put for a general inclination of all mankind a perpetual and restless desire of power after power that ceaseth only in death. Thomas Hobbes, a 17th century English philosopher, founded his political philosophy on a deeply pessimistic view of humanity. He asserted that inherent to human nature is a selfish, insatiable desire for power, guided by greed and the instinct for self-preservation. This bleak perspective laid the foundation for his seminal work Leviathan, published in 1651, which is considered a cornerstone of modern political thought. In Leviathan, Hobbes examines the essence of the human condition in the absence of any form of centralizing power structure, depicting a world where life is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Hobbes proposed a controversial solution to this potential anarchy by developing a political philosophy based on the surrendering of individual rights to a sovereign with absolute power. He believed that only an all-powerful ruler could impose order and secure peace in a society otherwise driven by self-interest and conflict. His ideas have sparked endless debates around the concepts of individual freedom and authority and have left a lasting impact on political theory. The extreme implications of Hobbes' ideas can be seen reflected within famous works of groundbreaking literature. George Orwell's 1984 and Aldous Huxley's Brave New World illustrate the dark potential for unchecked totalitarian regimes. These narratives serve as stark warnings of the dangers of unbridled authority and the suppression of individual freedoms. Hobbes' work remains profoundly relevant and offers us a lens through which we can critically examine our own political systems, helping us to navigate the delicate balance between security and liberty. Hobbes sought to illustrate the self-interested essence of human nature through the concept of the state of nature. This hypothetical realm portrays the condition of humanity prior to the establishment of the state, devoid of any authority or power structures. The state of nature is a brutal landscape of distrust, chaos, and perpetual war. It is devoid of any legal or even moral restraints, as Hobbes believed that these did not exist prior to the establishment of structured society. Instead, individuals are driven by a natural right, the right to ensure their self-preservation by any means necessary. This relentless pursuit of self-preservation fuels a cycle of perpetual conflict and war, as each person competes for resources and dominance in an environment where power is arbitrary and greed relentless. During the time men live without a common power to keep them all in awe, they are in that condition which is called war, and such a war is of every man against every man. Hobbes wrote Leviathan when he was in his 60s, in the aftermath of one of the most tumultuous and violent periods in English history, the English Civil War. This decade-long conflict profoundly influenced his perception of humanity, no doubt darkened through witnessing fellow countrymen slaughtering each other in a state of chaos, anarchy, and disorder. The opposing ideologies of monarchy and constitutional government fought for supremacy and left the fate of England hanging in the balance. Hobbes' belief in the necessity for a powerful, centralized authority to prevent societal collapse would have no doubt been reinforced through this experience. Centuries later, another individual who witnessed the chaos, destruction, and death of war went on to write one of the most influential books of the 20th century. William Golding, a World War II veteran, authored Lord of the Flies, a novel that centers around a group of boys shipwrecked on an island who must attempt to govern themselves. As they quickly descend into anarchy and violence, Golding vividly mirrors Hobbes' bleak view of humanity's essence in the absence of any centralizing power structure. Both Hobbes and Golding, shaped by the horrors of their respective wars, provide a grim commentary on the darker aspects of human nature and their belief in the necessity for order and security. Hobbes posited that rational individuals would want to alleviate the endless cycle of conflict and chaos within the state of nature and seek to establish a peaceful, harmonious society. Recognizing the motivating power behind humanity's desire for self-preservation and greed, Hobbes believed that the path to achieving peace required the surrendering of certain rights to a sovereign who would hold ultimate power. The sovereign, who can be an individual or a legislative body, holds the power to enforce laws in order to maintain order and security. However, this authority must stem from mutual agreement and collective consent from every individual in society, and only then can there be harmony and peace. This process of foundational agreement is what Hobbes termed the social contract, an agreement whereby individuals willingly relinquish certain freedoms in exchange for security and stability provided by a centralized authority. Hobbes does make a clear distinction between an ambitious individual manipulating the people for their own personal gain and a legitimate sovereign who acts in the interest of the common good. He recognized the power of personal ambition within individuals and the potential for manipulation through persuasive rhetoric and deceit. For the nature of ambition is to make men liars and cheaters, and to hide the truth in the bottom of their hearts, whilst they may suck and learn out of the ambiguity of words and actions what may be of use to them. According to Hobbes, these manipulative, ambitious individuals exploit the fears and desires of the populace to consolidate their power. Through misdirection and orchestration of the truth, they craft a narrative to serve their own purposes and reinforce their authority. Conversely, a genuine sovereign is an individual or group who derive their authority entirely from the collective agreement of the people through the social contract. They prioritize the welfare of the people, upholding laws, policies, and the common good to safeguard society against the descent into chaos and war. The only way to erect such a common power as may be able to defend them from the invasion of foreigners and the injuries of one another is to confer all their power and strength upon one man or upon one assembly of men that may reduce all their wills by plurality of voices unto one will. Hobbes' assertion here that all wills should be reduced into one collective will is a significant overlooking of the complexity of human nature. It fails to account for the variety of backgrounds, subjective experiences, opinions, and viewpoints that exist within any given society. It is true that Hobbes was writing during a time when the understanding of subjective experience as a crucial element of human experience was only just emerging. However, the subsequent development of this idea undermines the concept of unifying diverse individual wills into a singular collective will. Hobbes' political philosophy also underestimated the corrupting influence of absolute power and the very real potential for an unchecked authority's descent into tyranny. As Lord Acton famously stated, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Having witnessed the horrors of the English Civil War, Hobbes may have imagined that a corrupt, tyrannical sovereign was a lesser evil compared to the chaos and anarchy of the state of nature. He does, however, assert that society's obligation to obey a sovereign is contingent upon the sovereign's ability to protect them. The obligation of subjects to the sovereign is understood to last as long and no longer than the power lasteth by which he is able to protect them. Therefore, the social contract itself could be viewed as a safeguard against tyrannical power, as the sovereign's authority is derived entirely from the consent of the people. However, within his political philosophy, Hobbes does not provide any mechanisms for removing a sovereign who betrays the trust of the people. Later political philosophers, in particular John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, criticized Hobbes' philosophy for potentially legitimizing and justifying absolute tyranny. They emphasized the necessity of the protection of individual and natural rights grounded in a more positive perspective on human nature, and argued for a government that should be accountable to the people. However, both Locke and Rousseau diverged further on their conception of the role of government, the nature of humanity, and the social contract. Despite significant advances in political systems and the spread of democratic institutions across the world, authoritarian tendencies are still prevalent even within advanced societies. Corruption, undermining of legal institutions, and the suppression of free press and dissent are still remarkably common. In an era that increasingly values individual autonomy and diversity of thought, Hobbes' vision of a collective will and an all-powerful authority fails to appreciate the complexity of modern societies. As we continue to uphold the principles of individual rights and collective diversity, the task of maintaining our political structures becomes a crucial exercise in safeguarding the delicate balance between order and liberty.